welcome. Thank you for being here. We're here for an information session for Fridays in May, which is a queer BIPOC peer networking program. Yeah, and this was, we've been working on this for the past few months really, and so we're really excited to share it with you all. And I guess a good way to start would be introductions to the both of us. So hi, my name is Tracy Mark. I'm the program manager for Equity Archives and Media Preservation at Metro. So I do a lot of programming around those subjects, but not limited to. And I work with my colleague Mary, who's also here and helping out on the back end, sending links and stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. I've been at Metro for coming up to 3 years, or maybe 4 years now, actually 4 years. And I've just really enjoyed building these programs around equity and really creating affinity groups. I feel like they're so powerful. And when creating these kinds of things, I just think about what I really could have used in school or in the first few years of my career. So I just think that it's really exciting, and also what's special about this program is it's going to be in person, which is I think really going to be special, and we'll see each other on a weekly basis and build a rapport. But yeah, I'm really excited, and also this was brought to me by Sean, and this is how we sort of built the program. But I'm going to hand things over to Sean now.
Thanks, Tracy. Hi, everybody. I'm Sean, and I worked with Tracy last year, or maybe 2 years ago now, on one of the Metro Equity programs. And then I was just like, I want to work with Tracy every year. So I found another reason. I am an associate dean at NYU Libraries. My area is teaching, learning, and engagement. And actually, I've been there for 4 years, which LinkedIn has told me, because all the people keep saying, congratulations on your anniversary. And so they're right, it's true. So I've been there 4 years. I've also been working at Pratt School of Information as an adjunct assistant professor for maybe 5-ish years. I see some of my current and previous students in the chat. Yay, thanks for coming. And then I also am a co-coordinator at the Lesbian History Archives, which is a volunteer role. And I've been doing that for maybe like 15 or 16, or I don't know how old I am, years, a long time. And that's important because we're going to talk about LHA today. And I'm also a mom, and this is what I've really been doing the past 6 years, is I had a little person and she keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that was us this past summer at Disneyland in Los Angeles. And I still feel that way. I still feel like my arms are stretching out in excitement to her. I did want to say that to provide a note on identity, especially as it relates to, well, today in this room, but also for the program. We will talk about eligibility, and that the program is for library and information and archival professionals and master's students who identify as queer, Black, Indigenous, and/or people of color. But the info session is definitely open to anyone and everyone who's interested, because we imagine that someone might be curious for, to tell a friend or to have it at their library. So by being here, you're not coming up in any way to anyone in the space, which is why we felt it was okay to have the room open as a meeting. At the same time, we will ask you in the application when you apply to self-identify, and that will be the moment for which you acknowledge your own connection to queer BIPOC communities, as in a member of. But also we trust you, so we're not going to like verify that in any way, if that makes sense. I have a joke that I tell when I give tours at the Lesbian History Archives, when people walk in and they're like, am I allowed to come in? And I'm like, don't worry, nobody's going to like ask you to make out with them in the room. Like, you're here. So you're here, you're queer, but just be here and be present in the space. So there won't be any verification requests for identity in this room, or if someone is interested in being a part of the program. And with that, we're going to sort of go over what we'll cover.
Yeah. So this information session, I think it's important to note that a lot of the information is in our program guide and on our website as well. But we hope to give you some insight that maybe you wouldn't get from those documents. So we'll be giving a program overview, Fridays in May. What is it? Who's in it? Like who's eligible? Should you apply, and the application process, and then we will have some time to for you to ask questions at the end. Okay, so uh, just to give an overview, so it's in person each May Friday. So this coming May, every Friday. So May 3rd to May 31st, 5 Fridays. We're going to be meeting from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it's in-person networking. So there's going to be skill sharing, info gathering, networking, and peer mentorship. We will also have workshops and tours, which we're so excited about, and these will be led by, with, and among QBIPOC library archives and information professionals across the NYC metropolitan area. And we're going to get into what those are later in the presentation. And also this includes this manifold publishing opportunity, which is really wonderful. And you'll be able to submit a piece of writing or other media-based format. We're going to talk about that a lot later because this is not just a purely academic thing. It's okay if you don't feel strong in a certain area, like you will be supported in this process. And it's such a good opportunity for your future resumes or career building.
And I wanted to add to that too, that the reason why we chose this format is really that we found that, let's say you were in library school currently or in the past 5 years, or actually have graduated in the past 5 years, there was sort of a schism that took place where we lost access to each other, I think, and we're still rebuilding from that. And so it was really important for us to have an in-person connecting, networking community of folks who were locally, in proximity to each other already, but maybe we're missing each other in some ways. And I really enjoy mentorship as a function of what has gotten me through the profession. But I think that when it comes to queer BIPOC folks, the lines are blurred in terms of, I guess, in a hierarchical way, in that we share community. And so I thought peer networking made more sense, but it's still kind of a peer mentorship. I think having folks that you can rely on or check in with or skill share with is really important. And it's something that I have, and I realize it's not necessarily available to everyone. And I got a lot of that while in library school. I sort of built on what I got in library school. And if you didn't really have that opportunity, then we need to make up for lost time. And then I think having the spaces that we chose, making sure that they sort of allowed for a collective shared experience, I think, is what we were looking forward to. So let's get into it. That's all. We're sort of going to get into it. So we're going to go through each Friday and what one could expect. Lots of text on here. A lot of this text will is on the website and on the guide. Also, you can put questions in the chat at any time. And Mary just put the details in the chat. So the first week we're going to meet at the Pratt School of Information. So if you've gone to Pratt School of Information, huzzah! Pratt School of Information actually is funding a fellowship for this sort of the launch of this program. So we're excited that they're allowing also the space. That room in the bottom right corner, or bottom right, yes, corner of the screen, is where the room in which we will meet. And what we'll do is really have a sort of introduction to the program, but we're about who we are as queer folks, as folks of color, and really ground ourselves in that identity and that reality, and be in community together for the first time in a physical space. So it's going to be a really important session. It'll be the first Friday of the month, and I'm going to lead that session, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so now we get into some of the tours. So our second Friday is at Whitney Museum Archives. So this tour will be led by Tara Hart, who's an archivist who's worked at the Whitney for a very long time, but has a lot of experience in museum work. So has worked at the Guggenheim, has worked at the New Museum, has worked at Fales at NYU as well. So we wanted to give a range of experiences that you could possibly envision yourself in. And one of them is like a museum archive library experience. So we felt like Tara would be great to give this tour, and also will be available for you to ask questions about, what it's like, what it's been like, or, any questions you have about their experience. So we will also be, an important thing to note for all these too is like, we'll also be having lunch at the end, which we just felt was so important. We're also going to be sharing a meal together where you can where we can chat and, really have that quality time to ask questions and to engage with your peers. So this is one perspective, which represents like a museum perspective of what that could look like.
Can I add one more thing too?
Yeah, of course.
Just also that we chose archives also because most people enter the library field. This is probably an overgeneralization, but I will say for the students that I've encountered, many of them come in and say, I'm interested in archives. And mostly they want museum archives and sort of like have an expectation of what that means. And I think meeting with the museum archivists, right, whether you have landed that role or whether you're still seeking it or whether you ended up becoming an electronic resources librarian, but you still have this hidden like curiosity, hearing from Tara directly about what does the day-to-day look like and being on site and getting a sense of that, I think is important.
The next one is Barnard Milstein Center, and this tour will be given by Miriam Neptune, who is the director of the Milstein Center Exhibits Programming and Public Engagement. So this will give an experience of an academic, library, but also what's special about Miriam. Well, first of all, Miriam has so much experience and I think we're just very lucky to get, and has worked at Barnard for over 10 years in some capacity, and so has a lot of experience in what this working in an academic setting is like. But also there's this perspective of programming and public engagement. I think, as we all know, this career can take so many different forms, and so we thought it was important to give you a varied experience. So you'll get this experience of learning what it would be like to work at an academic environment, but also in kind of programming and public engagement, which is great. And again, there will be food after. We will go for lunch after.
And Miriam and Tara are both going to join us for the food. They're excited about
Yes.
like sitting with everybody and chatting. So on the fourth Friday, we're gonna I feel like come home, if you will, for me. We're gonna go to NYU. And we're going to, if you're in an LIU NYU dual degree program, or if you're in an NYU program, you'll be very familiar with the space, but the Bopst Library has a renovation. So it'll be not renovation, sort of a facelift, I think. And that's what that picture in the upper corner shows what the first floor looks like. So we'll definitely do like a mini tour. I'll say mini because I don't want to spend too much time walking around. I want us to be in the room. We're going to have our second workshop where we will go deep into decoding silences and thinking about the language that exists in the field and persists in the field, and really generating our own language. So this is a moment to have a takeaway from the program, specifically as it relates to things, diversity statements or open positions, or evaluating like what is the call to action in all of these new roles that are coming out in libraries. We'll also talk about the Manifold Submission Project and get you geared up to thinking through what you may want to submit. And then we'll end the last Friday of the month at the Lesbian Herster Archives. Every time I think of the Lesbian Herster Archives, it feels like a party. So I'm like, that's why that's the last location. We'll go to Brooklyn and we will definitely get a tour of Lesbian Herster Archives. If you've had a tour already, or if you've given one, I think everyone's tour is different. So I don't think, if you've had a tour from me, trust me, it's changed. So we're going to look at the collections. We're going to think about what collections we may want to open and touch, but then also participate in sort of this community-based archive, a really different space, and thinking through like what are the implications of a community-led, community-informed, and community-based space. So I'm excited to bring everybody to LHA. We'll have lunch sponsored by the Lesbian History Archives on site in the space, or maybe we'll go to the park across the street if it's really nice weather and have a picnic. We'll see, because it's May, so we have to capitalize on the time of year.
Okay, so next we'll talk through the honoraria once we've gone through all 5 Fridays. And I'll definitely be speaking about this probably on the 4th or 5th Friday, just to like set everyone up. So no worries, we'll be talking about this throughout. But to support your studies and your well-being and your career, each participant will receive a $500 honorarium for their participation in the program. And you'll receive the check by mail within 2 to 6 weeks after the final session. So I will walk you through giving us an invoice and what that looks like. But don't worry, we will be there to support you. And this also includes the Manifold publishing opportunity, which will happen, post session 5, as we're going to get into the next slide.
Yes. And I'm actually gonna pull away. See, I think I want to do it this way. Exit slide. Yes. Because I'm going to share my screen. So I wanted to give everyone it's a very, very mini brief intro to Manifold, mostly via the lens of the publishing opportunity. Part of NYU's contribution to this project, and thank you NYU, is supporting open access scholarly publishing and really introducing this to the folks in the room, or to the group, or to the people who would participate, and allowing for the option to submit any media-based format. It can be a piece of writing, it can also be audio, it can be video, it can be something else. So something that really is reflective of you and maybe either your experience in the program, your experience as it relates to your connection to libraries, archives, or information, or something that you are hopeful for or would like to see in creation. So I wanted to show some examples because I met with a student recently who gave me really great feedback on the Manifold publishing opportunity, and I thought, let me show some examples. So the opportunity link sends you to this Google Doc, which gives you some details, thank you, Mary, about the Manifold project. These are prompts. These questions are sort of like, here's some prompts to guide your thought process or what might be of interest, like thinking about how you define community or how you define queerness, thinking also about being a person of color in a BIPOC body and being someone in a queer body, and just what that brings up for you. And I think having to break that down as someone who's a member of the library worker, archive worker, information worker community is inherent in what we do. So in some ways, it doesn't have to be explicit. I added to this. So these are format ideas that can look like essays or personal narratives, any kind of multimedia-based work, interviews that you may have with someone. It could be interviews technically with each other. I mean, really, if you really wanted to. Podcast episodes, which of course, episodes requires a series, but you could sort of record a podcast, a single standalone, write a piece of literary work, a book review. We just had a bunch of books listed in our intro. So if there is a book that you think would be informative to this work, that would be an example. We're going to talk to folks who are working with exhibitions, so even an exhibition review, a finding aid that maybe you saw a piece of archival material that spoke to you and you wanted to really tease that out and create an aid to it. That's an example, or a kind of infographic that you create, whether it's sort of by hand in a zine-like way or digitally, a poster or infographic. So those are just the examples that came up for me in my mind, but there's someone can make a totally separate list. Before I get into the timeline, I did want to share the inspirations. So I already have them clicked here. So NYU's manifold is here. It's this is the platform for which it exists. And we've put stuff in here like exhibition overviews or exhibition catalogs. We also have dual degree student projects. And here's an example of one person's, Isra Abedin's project, where Isra took various format types and talked about an extremely brief history of how video has changed the world. And it includes texts, and it also includes like PDFs, videos. So she did a whole project that was, and links that was connected to various components. And that's what it could look like. And it really shows what it could store. I also really like the CUNY manifold, which is sort of the place, oops, I have Elvis's name, the place where Manifold sort of generated itself in New York. And CUNY is much more populated. And so one of the projects in here that I really like, that I've linked to, I'm just going to search for it by using the word queer and not the word Elvis, is the Queer and Trans Voices, Prison Voices project. And this was someone's capstone project, right, where they like had a whole 2 years to work on it. So in terms of scale, you have like a few weeks, you don't have 2 years. So we're not expecting something as long as this. But what I like about it is it has a written component, which was essentially the capstone project, but then it also has these audios where they have 2 sections, like archive of prison writings and then a podcast series of queer and trans voices. And I didn't share my audio, so I don't know if it's going to actually work if I try and click this, but essentially it is the voice of Mpingo Waridi Uhuru, who recorded these recordings while incarcerated and got these onto the site. And they're like 30 seconds and 1 minute long. And so it's sort of like the repetition of it is kind of a meditation of having these short, brief audio splits of someone's life. That connects me to another project that I was inspired by, for which made me want to incorporate this project. And it's through a group called Uproot. And I'll put that in the chat, which is a publication that came out of We Here. I think I messed that up with a little asterisk at the end. So there it goes. And this is their compilation called Home, which is a recent release. And so they have it in 3 parts. Part 1 is a love letter to community. Part 2 is a diasporic reflection, and part 3 is in search of safety. And these are all library workers of color who present here. And so many of them are great. A lot of them are reflective conversations. And one of them in particular by Jewel Davis, I really like, where Jewel creates a photo journal, and it's called A Nesting Place Belonging, Critical Creativity. And I don't know if you can hear it.
Being a Black woman living and working in the South, surrounded as
But
an
what she does
individual,
is,
librarian, and within an academic community of practice, I use visual journaling as a method for deep inner work and healing.
she uses what she just said. I'm not sure if you could hear, but visual journaling as a method of deep inner work and healing. And so I think that her video project or audio projects or any kind of written projects, poetry that can go up. So there's very many options that can exist on Manifolds. And I think that's the fun part to me, is to think through what are the various ideas that are running through our minds that we could connect. And that's partly why I guess I'll end by saying that although this is meant to be part of a future project, it's unnamed, because I think part of it is getting a sense of what people want to contribute before we name it. And that right now, the idea is that it would be focused on QBIPOC experiences in libraries. And where it comes from, that is sort of still in formation. And I feel really good in places of unknowingness. And that makes me feel like relaxed. I know some other people feel nervous and they might want more concrete direction, but I really want people to lean into what the possibilities might be about what they're going to focus on. We'll have it so that after the last day, you can get started. So you're not really expected to work on it during the program, but you do have a short turnaround. So about 2 weeks later in June, you can submit it. So it's meant to be something you can do in 2 weeks. But you could start working on it now, technically, or after you get admitted to the program. Then we'll have it where I submit kind of here are some edits or things that you can update, or here's what more I need from you. And then we'll have a final deadline in August where you sort of say, this is it. You don't have to work on it after this. And then we'll publish it on Manifold sometime in the fall of 2024. That's the plan.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about eligibility. So you're welcome to apply for this program if you are enrolled in an MA, Master of Arts, or Master of Science program related to libraries, archives, and/or preservation. This may include programs such as library and information science / studies, archives management, moving image archiving and preservation, museums, digital culture, information experience design, and data analytics and visualization. So one important thing that I want to mention is that there may be things related to this field and related to this degree that we haven't listed here. So if you or a friend is wondering, am I eligible? Before like discounting yourself, just I think send us an email.
There's more though. Let me go to the next slide.
And ask the question. So yeah, and there's more. Yeah. But Sean.
Oh, do I say that and more? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, there is more. I'm the and more.
Yeah, you think.
So if you've have graduated from such a program within the past 5 years, or have 5 or fewer years of experience as a credentialed librarian or archivist, identify as queer, and identify as a Black person, Indigenous person, and/or other person of color. As we mentioned in the application form, we're just going to ask you to check a box, and that's it. There's no further questions. We trust you. So this list this program is open to all individuals who identify with both those slides. And but again, in terms of qualifications of like a degree wise or where you are in your career, I think ask us the question, send us an email, and we're so willing to have the conversation. So yeah. Oh, and preference will be given to applicants who live in the 5 boroughs. But if you're in New York State, elsewhere, feel free to send us an application. But this is an in-person program, so that part's pretty important.
So we want to just make sure you have all of the important dates together. And that is that we put the call out about I don't know what date it is, in January. And then we have a deadline for March 1st. So there's still plenty of time to think it through. But we want people to apply by Friday, March 1st. By 5 p.m. Pay attention to that, because some people will think midnight. It's 5 p.m. because we're excited. We want to get the applications and then read them through. We're going to have a program start date on May 3rd, and there will be a program end date on May 31st. So that's sort of the in-person times, the Fridays in May. There will be an honorarium of $500, and we know that the eligibility requirements are kind of narrow. Like, not a lot of people are going to be eligible for this, and we are aware of that, and that's why we have 8 slots. So, in some ways, maybe there are 8 people in the entire New York City that are eligible for this program, and then that would be great. We have covered all the bases. So we don't anticipate that there will be hundreds of people, and that was sort of by design. We really want to have people find their people, and that's where the 8 participants also, the funding allows only for up to 8 participants to participate, but we think it will be a really great group with 8 participants, Tracy and I, and then our tour guides. It'll be sort of intimate. You really can connect with people that way. And so I wanted to walk us through the application just so you see what is required to apply. It's ultimately submit your CV or resume, just have it be current and up to date. Don't worry too much about the format. We just want to know where you are, what you're up to, whether you're in library school or whether you're currently working, where you've done any kind of work in the library or information or archives field. That should be in your resume. That way you can just keep your 300 to 500 words focused on why you would like to participate in the Queer BIPOC peer networking program. If you spend those 300 to 500 words telling us an overview of what you've done, then you don't really get to the good stuff of like, okay, thanks for telling us what you've done, but why do you want to be in the program? Don't leave just like 2 sentences for that. Give us the whole good meaty 300 to 500 words of why you want to participate in the program. And who knows, that stuff could be so well done that it can like translate into the start of your manifold. See, I'm just thinking out loud here, but you never know. So in the application, here's what it looks like. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. Ooh, very big. So it overviews what's already on the website, everything we've talked about today. It thanks all the folks who have worked with us to get this done, Metro, Pratt, NYU. It gives you the overview of who's eligible and what we're going to do, the aim of the program, which is for us to network ourselves, participate in info gathering, and we're going to do tours, workshops, mediated conversations. So this is all of what we sort of talked about today. And then you will write your name. You will write an email address. Okay, I'm just going to do it because it's going to give me that button. The email address that you want to be reached, even though sometimes, Google will identify you, we're not collecting your email address here. So put in the email address for which you would like to be reached. And then if you have questions, you can still get back to us. Oh, I've already pre-filled this. So you should say that you're either currently enrolled or a recent graduate within the past 5 years. If you're not within these 2 realms, click other and then explain why, like actually, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We also want to know what school what your institutional affiliation is as it relates to an MLIS. This is with an assumption that like you got your MLS here, but maybe you got your MLS at Florida. That's okay. Just put other and then say the other thing that's here. Do tell us what your graduate program name is. So that's sort of like, let's say you went to Pratt, and then you can say I was in the LIS or the DAV program or something like that. So you can further elaborate. And then when it comes to identity, here's that box. Yes, I identify as a queer person and I identify as either a Black person, Indigenous person, or person of color. If you want to talk more about that, you can actually check both of these because that's okay. But we want you to make a choice. And here's where you put your 300 to 500 words. So it's a copy and paste. Definitely write it on like a separate document and then paste it in here. Because if you're trying to write 300 words here, it's gonna like, get in your way. So write it down and then paste it in. And then here's where you add the file of your CV or your resume. If you do not have a Gmail account, this won't allow you to do it. So that's okay. Just submit this and then send us your CV or resume on email. And our email addresses are here. Was there something I missed?
No, I think we're good. Yeah, so just fill out the application, and if you have any issues, just send us an email. Or again, yeah, if you can't attach your CV, just send us your CV through email. No problem. Okay. So let's go over the timeline once again. And so our call for applications was on Thursday, January 18th, and today is our info session. Our deadline to submit questions is February 23rd, but if you have questions after, you can send us an email. And March 1st is our deadline, 5 p.m. And the week of Monday, March 25th, all program applicants will be notified whether, they will participate in the program or not. And then before the Fridays and all the Fridays in May, we will have an online meeting with all the program participants and the two of us. And this is just so you come in on the first Friday and you know who you're somewhat familiar with, who's going to be in the room, who you're going to spend every Friday with. So you'll have that beforehand, so you'll feel comfortable coming in.
Can I also say that once we notify everyone that they've been accepted and they sort of say, yes, I still want to do it, we'll make sure that everybody can attend. So it'll be almost like a doodle or a when to meet, like, all right, so when are you free the week of April 8th?
Yeah.
So we can, that's why it's a TBD.
Yes, yeah. We will send out a doodle. Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, that's it. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh, so before we notify folks and after the application deadline, what Tracy and I are actually going to do is review the applications, and we're going to like ask to meet with some people. Like we might have a kind of an interview time.
Mhm.
So that'll be before we notify people. So we're going to read your applications and we may decide to interview folks
Yes.
one-on-one, and it'll be like 30 minutes.
Yeah, tops 30 minutes 30 minutes, and we will reach out and we'll suggest a bunch of times. Like we'll find a time that works for everyone's schedule. Okay. Okay.
Then we have all our Fridays in May.
Wow.
That we already went over. So the first one was on the previous slide. Then we have Whitney, then we have Barnard, then we have NYU, then we have LHA. And then we end, that's a party. Oh, I should also say that the LHA one, if you, whereas everything else is going to be closed, LHA, after I'm going to open the archives, I'll be like staffing. So I'll start staffing at like 3 p.m. That means if you want to bring people or like invite your partner or a friend or a colleague to also come, you can stay and you can have them meet you at LHA. So that's kind of like in my head, it's a party. Everybody can come at the 3, after the tour, after the 2 p.m. And then we'll have submission for Manifold due a couple weeks later, which is an electronic submission. You don't have to show up for that.
Okay. Yeah, and this is our contact information. And it's all over the website and the program guide as well. Please submit if you can by February 23rd. That's great. And yeah, we're really looking forward to hosting this program and hopefully reading all your applications.